Hey, hi everyone. Really excited to have this conversation today around shaping the future of banking, the top 50 core banking technology providers in 2026, right? So our team has done a fantastic research and we're going to talk about that and everything between that. But before we do that and have that conversation, we'll do a quick round of introductions so you know who's there with you on this fun conversation when we talk about core banking, AI, and everything in between. So I'm Ronak, I'm partner with Everest Group, and I lead our global financial services research. I have my amazing team with me, and I'll let them introduce. So Kriti, I'll go with you next.
Thanks, Ronak. Hi, everyone. Glad to be tuning in. I'm Kriti Gupta. I'm a practice director and part of Ronak's team. I look after our banking and financial services technology research. I also have with me Lakshay and Rakshit, who are spearheading and our core SMEs in the core banking space. Lakshay, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hello everyone. Good evening, good morning. Lakshay Gupta this side, senior analyst with the firm, part of banking and financial services team. Glad to be part of this connect. Happy to share more insights what we have discovered in the second iteration of top 50 core banking technology providers. We have seen a lot of change. So yeah, excited to discuss all of that. Yeah, Rakshit, do you want to go next?
Thanks, Lakshay. Hey, everyone. Good evening. This is Rakshit. I'm an analyst at the firm, part of banking and financial services team. Really excited to be here and share the insights that we have collated.
Yeah, no, I think this is going to be a fun conversation. So I thought before we get into core banking, I wanted to talk about my favorite topic these days, and there's no prize for guessing that. That's AI, right? And for all of you who are tuning in right now, getting settled with your coffees, or your meal if you are in different time zones, right? So again, we would want to love to hear about what you are seeing, right? Again, where are you seeing AI being used, right? Or if you have to tell us what are the pieces of work that you would want AI to take away, right? Again, that's the fun bit of it. So I thought I'm going to go to my team and also ask them this same question, right? And Kriti, again, I'll go and start with you, right? So what's that one thing that you still spend time on that you wish AI could completely handle for you, right? What's that one AI magic trick that you would want to happen out here?
So that's an interesting question, Ronak, and I think I went into a bit of an introspection on that one because as an analyst, we talk about data fragmentation across enterprises day in, day out. But I feel there's a lot of data fragmentation in our lives as well as I look at it. So I see a part of my life, the data fragmented across work, data fragmented across personal priorities, health goals, family, school runs, etc. And there are days I wish that there is an AI layer that can do it all for me, that can connect all these dots, because I see calendars, I see tasks, but I don't see a single cohesive unit that can take in my priorities across everything, my energy levels and my intent. So that is my wishful thinking. I don't know, maybe if someone is listening out there, you build something, data privacy will definitely be something to think about in that case, but that's my wishful thinking, Ronak, if that can happen.
Yeah, no, all of us, right? Again, uh, I was having dinner with a few friends over this weekend, and I think that was the conversation is, hey, we want to plan a lot of our travels. We want to kind of do more activities. We want to do more outdoors, but hey, coordinating a lot of these multiple calendars between friends is hard, right? Let alone managing calendars when we want to kind of get together for professional meetings and other things is another thing, right? If I could take some of these small activities away, I think that's more time and productivity to all of us. So I do get that. And I know a bunch of you are joining us live right now. So as you join out here, we would love to hear from you, right? I know we're going to get to core banking, we're going to get to top 50. But hey, let's talk a little bit about hey, what's one thing that you are doing with AI these days or you would want AI to do, right? And share those comments with us. So Lakshay, I'm going to come with the same question to you. What's your view here?
Yeah, I use AI quite a bit, right? But probably what I would want AI to do is cut down all these noise and give me just relevant information. So as an analyst, I do read a lot of these long forms, annual report, press releases, but few of these, again, there's a lot out in the market. So I would really want AI to filter out certain things for me and give something like highly relevant. And I have done very interesting thing basis that. So I've tried setting up a simple automation where I've told AI that, hey, I track these markets and these providers per se. So every Monday morning, I get an email from the tool that, okay, this is had happened in the last 1 week. So that's something interesting that I'm trying on, but yeah, I would really want AI to do that for me. Basis. So basically, a more of a personalized version that I would want to see from AI.
Okay, so from personal assistant to work assistants, right? Or information gathering assistant or clutter removal assistants. Okay, so those are fun agents that we're already starting to talk about. So from AI, we've already moved to agents. So Rakshit, now you need to take this to the next level. What do you want AI to do?
Yeah, I think every time I think about it, there are so many options that comes to mind. Right now, I think, and I very much echo what Kriti just said. I think we are all playing different sort of roles in our lives, and that role keeps on changing in a microsecond. If right now, let's say I am playing a role of an analyst and I have had a busy day, then as soon as we head home, now we have to play, let's say I have to play the role of a brother now. And getting into that zone sometimes is very tricky. If we can have an AI for that, that can just help us define the expectations clearly to other folks, I think that would be just incredibly helpful.
Okay, so so now we've evolved way more further, right? So from a task assistance to now you move towards uh,
An AI
AI,
clone.
AI
Yeah, a
drone
true
or
personal assistant
AI.
sort of.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
like a more augmented reality version, right? So which can actually see,
Yes.
feel, touch, understand emotions, and kind of give you a sense on, hey, this is what is happening around you, and allows you to react better, right? So okay, so
But
that's
but Ronak, you also have to tell us, right? You also have to tell us what is one thing that you
something that
still
yeah.
spend time on and you wish AI could completely handle for you.
My you'll not like my answer, but one of the things I kind of hate doing is uh folding clothes and ironing them. So if it can take that away, I would be always. I keep complaining every time I do laundry, and I'm like, why do I need to do this? That's the one thing which I wanted to take away, and that gives me some time to do something else. I would love, right? So taking care of laundry, I would say that's for me. Not the fun answer. So yeah, I don't have that
It's a very
complex.
real answer.
I don't have those complex answers. I think this is very simple. Make my life easy out here. Um, but AI, right? And again, the reason we're talking about AI is very important, right? If I look at across banks of different sizes, AI is now from a board level priority to every employee. It's become a priority for all of us. And we realize that we are limited by the organizational debt that we have, right? Be it data debt. I think Kriti, you were talking about data debt in your own personal environment, to architectural debt or technology debt. And I think that's where we realize modernization is becoming so critical, right? Can we eliminate some of the challenges that we have across our data, technology, architecture, processes, where AI can then start getting applied and can truly move beyond these piecemeal point solution based to actually giving end-to-end process level outcomes. And that's where modernization becomes critical, right? Modernization is where, hey, you want to plug in AI into the core of the business and not just into the periphery. That's where you realize your legacy systems is holding you back, right? You then start a series of modernization initiatives by making it more modular, componentized, taking small component of the core one piece at the time. And all of that is good, but what it does is your pace of AI adoption and impact is now limited by the pace and scale at which you can modernize. And that is where a research like this that we talked about, which is our top 50 core banking research, becomes very important, right? Because the answer is not as simple as, hey, we can replace these systems. Absolutely not. Like, this is not just about how can I infuse AI into new greenfield core systems, right? It isn't like a black and white thing, right? There's a lot of gradients that we need to deal with, right? There's complexities that we need to deal with, and that's where the old and the new will coexist and will have to run, right? So we have a responsibility to extend the life of what we have and use it more responsibly, but at the same time build the new pieces that can be very well unified with what we have. And it's a very hard architectural and technology problem. At the same time, it takes away time from what we want to do as all, right? So for me, it could be time I want to spend with my clients or build new products, build better experiences, or just drive better experience for my employees and advisors, which I'm not able to invest time into because I'm kind of consumed with all of these complexities that we're dealing. But the intent is very clear. We want to enable AI infusion to kind of drive this unified data models, build these modular services, build these event driven architectures that we've been talking about for the last decade for a world that is now AI enabled. So think about it. In the core modernization world, we are not talking about API enabled banking. We are just now talking about MCP server enabled banking. So we've truly moved from talking about API consumption to MCP servers where AI agents can consume those. So you've suddenly increased the technical sophistication of what we would want our core banking to kind of enable out here. And all of this is going to take massive investment and a very strong ecosystem of technology providers, services providers, consulting firms, all coming together to bring this together. So, and that's what we want to talk about today, right? We want all of you should expect in the next 40 minutes or so we're going to provide you a brief overview of what are we seeing in the market from a banking technology perspective. We want to double down onto the top 50 core banking technology providers. We realize this is not one uniform segment market, like it is a very heterogeneous market with a lot of sub-segmentations. So, hey, what is happening in the UK market versus, say, Europe as a market versus Latin America versus market versus an APAC versus Middle East is very different. So, we want to highlight that. We also want to talk about how are the ecosystem around the core banking systems are evolving, right? Be it the ISVs, the experience providers, the hyperscalers who are providing the infrastructure for this intelligence layer, the system integrators, consulting firms, how are all coming together to kind of drive this? And more importantly, how AI and now also even with agentic AI is going to reshape core banking and our point of view on that. So it's going to be a very interesting conversation. You're going to hear from Kriti, Rakshit, and Lakshay around all of these themes today. What I would ask all of you is feel free to ask us questions in the comments. We would love to kind of answer those as we go along live on this. And you know where to find us, right? So with that, Kriti, let's dig into it, right? So I want to start with you again, right? What are some of the takeaways for you, right? And again, that you would want banks and large financial services in enterprises, right? Again, what are the key takeaways for them as you look at the broader core banking market out here?
Sure, Ronak, and I'm happy to share those. And as the audience would also see in the coming observations that we have, this is our second iteration of the top 50 research we are doing in the core banking space. There are three key takeaways that at least I have, and what I would suggest to the banking enterprises as well. Number one, what we saw is core modernization is no longer becoming a question of if, but more about how it should happen. How do we do it without disrupting my current business? So there is increasing pressure to modernize, but there is no affordability to do very high risk, large scale transformation. I think this risk still existed in the last decade, but with the advent of AI, this has become more prominent. The speed to modernize is becoming a critical factor. The second thing that we are increasingly seeing is there is a very clear shift towards coexistence led modernization. And I think, Ronak, you touched upon this, right? So instead of ripping and replacing the core or even disrupting the core, banks are thinking of modernization in layers. Now, they could go about it in silos of, say, a lending system or a payment system, or even just broadly thinking about from a use case perspective, right? From onboarding or to say underwriting, right? So there are different methodologies banks are taking now. Some of these may also percolate beyond core banking, but the bigger question today is how do I do a coexistence led modernization? I still continue running with my core, but then I think about modernization in layers. And then finally the AI bit. Again, I know you talked about it, it's a favorite topic these days, but AI is becoming very, very central to this transformation. So the bigger thing we are seeing is it is no longer something that is put on the top or something that just to experience orchestrate the experience bit. But what we're increasingly seeing is how it is becoming embedded into the core. The MCP server example you gave, it's a very real example today. but different use cases like your fraud detection, the real-time decisioning pieces, I think that is where we are seeing the shift more prominent. So in summary, how do you be more modular, how to be more pragmatic, and how do you be more intelligence driven, all at speed and scale, are the big takeaways from our research this year on core banking.
And it's interesting, right, Kriti, because the kind of questions we are getting, inquiries we are getting also from all our clients around core banking has been around, hey, I want to drive value on our process outcomes. And hey, we want to basically look at these as use cases. And how do we solve for that versus trying to solve for all of it? And now with AI and with agentic AI, it's even becoming more critical to kind of go after those specific use cases and services so that vision of banking as a service or core banking as a service that we were kind of talking about a decade ago or so, right? I think that's kind of now materially there already. So the approach is now very much weeded in terms of how folks are looking at modernization, core banking vendor selection. But at the same time, we also have a lot of clients who have multiple core banking systems, right? We have one of our clients which has 13 different systems, right? And one of the things they want to do is, hey, how do we homogenize, simplify, optimize, rationalize these estate? Because we also want to make sure our total cost of ownership or operations kind of go down, right? So I think that's also what I have seen quite a bit happen out here, right? So I kind of completely echo what you are saying. And if I look at the inquiries that we are getting, and I know there's regional nuancing to it, what we are hearing in the Middle East region versus what we are seeing in the US market or Canada is very different. But there are certain common themes that are kind of starting to emerge out here. And Kriti, I think as you look at last year versus this year, are there any other themes that you would say have kind of been meaningful to kind of call out?
Sure. I think as I look at this research and the previous iteration we had, it came out about 12 to 18 months back. And I would say market sentiment and market demand has shifted a lot in these last 12 to 18 months. So while you talked about the process level intelligence that banks are seeking today, that where can I drive value, where can I homogenize, where can I reduce the friction between my system, the biggest shift that I see in this market is from ambition to execution. So earlier there were all these conversations, hey, what is this future ready digital core, what is the blueprint of my future estate? I think now as I look at it, all the enterprises today are asking, how do I make it work in reality? Which are the typical use cases or processes I start with? Which are the systems I homogenize first, right? So that ambition to execution gap has really thinned in the last 12 to 18 months. The other implication of this execution gap that's coming in is we saw a lot of new entrants in our top 50 as well this year, Ronak. So we saw many cloud native API first providers also coming in that had more modular, flexible architectures, which were also echoing the enterprise demand and sentiment. At the same time, we also saw the need to recognize certain new categories from last time, because I know we touched upon the geo nuancing, right? Core banking may take on a different meaning in UK, something different altogether in North America, and completely different in Middle East and APAC. The other thing we also saw is Islamic banking as a recognition area, no longer a niche, but a growing strategic segment. At the same time, adoption of AI and agents in banking, that was another shift we saw. So overall, we are seeing conversations becoming much more practical, much more grounded in reality, and more nuanced, because banks are no longer looking at scale of providers, but more
Yeah.
about how can they help address my problem statement, my process statement. So I think that is one big shift and one big learning that we have had as well.
Oh, that's great. And Kriti, I know we're talking about the top 50. What is it, right? And again, can you talk a little bit about that and what are the results?
Definitely, I think we're now at the moment in the hour that everyone has been waiting for, and which will make what we're about to share very very interesting, because against all this backdrop and for our audience today, while we touched upon the nuances of core modernization, a topic as evergreen as it ever will be, The bigger piece here is we have identified the top 50 core banking technology providers globally. And of course, within that, we have the top 10 providers who are shaping this market today. And I think with that, it's time for the big reveal. So I'll ask for drum rolls, please. And we really want to announce the top 10 for our audience. So let's hear this out. Thank you. And we have the names as well of the top 10. So this is the top 10 provider list for our core banking technology providers research in 2026. FIS, Pfizer, Finesta, Temenos, Infosys Finacle, Oracle, TCS with the banks offering, SPS, CSI, and Jack Henry. For our audience today, as you'll notice, this is a mix of established leaders, some of the evolving players. The bigger thing that is interesting today is leadership is not just about scale anymore today. It's about how well providers can align to the modularity needs, the AI requirements, and also investing in ecosystem at the same time. Right. So as we go through this is not just about current strength, but also the future investments and the readiness that providers are putting in. Last piece is we are seeing increasing evidence of embedding AI directly into the core platform. So that's I think one other key area that stood out. So that's the top 10, everyone. I just wanted to call those out and congratulate all the providers on this. All right. So Ronak, you asked about the top 10, but as we discussed earlier, right, this market is much more vibrant. There's a bigger segment out there. The answer is not always restricted to one or two providers, but as banks evolve and as they look at their needs, they will need to look at it from a very use case specific and requirement specific view. So the next reveal I want to do for our audience today is the top 50 reveal, which is the entire full landscape. So if we can have drum rolls for this one as well, please. And I think as that drum roll comes up, I also want to talk about, thank you. Thanks for that. Again, congratulations to the full top 50 list of providers. I also want to share a couple of insights, what we had, and then I'll ask Lakshay and Rakshit to also share some of their observations on the top 50. So the entire top 50 list we are seeing is a mix of global players, specialists, regional providers, and also some cloud native entrants we saw. Core banking, as we see, is not a winner takes all market anymore. There's significant innovation happening. At the same time, we are seeing much more specialization emerge, specialization across credit unions, Islamic banking, or specific geos. And there's a lot of movement that happened in this list as well, right? Because we did this way back in 2024, and now we are here in 2026. There is a big difference we are seeing. And at the same time, what it means for banks, more choice, but also more complexity in selecting the right partner. So I think that's where our top 50 is. Lakshay, Rakshit, any of your observations, because you have been very close to most of these providers as you interacted and as we spoke to the enterprises as well.
Yeah, you rightly called out, right? We have seen a lot of new entrants at this time. And what really stood out for me is we are seeing a lot of these top 50 providers partnering with these providers who are offering those digital rails, right? Stablecoin is going big. So how you can embed those into your existing rails, existing core system is becoming critical. So you will see a lot of these providers partnering with these stable coins and tokenization friendly providers who can embed the same infrastructure into existing rails. And along with stable coins, I think agentic commerce as a theme is also picking up with these technology providers. So you will now see, and we are already seeing evidences of that these core banking technology providers are making available those agentic commerce, checkout, issuing capabilities in the existing system. So again, that becomes an incentive for enterprises, right? Hey, I can offer or I can package these multiple offerings to for you to stay on top of the market. So we are seeing that shift on how these technology providers go to market, whether and how their proposition changes. And that's why you will see a lot of new entrants who are like going all out with these proposition and next gen capabilities. Rakshit, do you want to share some more observation?
Thank you, Lakshay. I think you captured the essence really well. I was thinking about how agentic commerce in itself is evolving, and I completely echo the sentiment that you brought in. So very similar thoughts here.
No, that's great, and thanks for sharing that. And Lakshya, you're absolutely right. So while the top 50 itself will not tell the full story, there are different nuances and the layers to it that we need to unpack. I also want to talk about certain of these recognition areas because this entire list is not going to tell the full story. Leadership today in core banking is also defined by where and how the providers are innovating. So we'll start with different geographies first, right? Because the reality across core banking is very, very different across regions, different regulatory environments, customer expectations, digital maturity. They all shape how banks are taking their modernization decisions today. So let's unpack that a bit. And as we go to the next slide, Lakshay, do you want to talk about what are the trends you are seeing across geographies and what is it that we picked up?
Yeah, sure. And this was quite interesting, right? And I will look at it from two angles and for our audience benefit. So, what we have done here is we have analyzed more than 280 core banking deals over the course of last 4 years. And based on that, we looked at, hey, which are these providers who are building strong momentum in a specific region, and who are these core bank technology providers who are signing deals in the specific region. So this is really a reflection of where providers are actually winning in the market, not just they have the presence. And now the point that Kriti was alluding to, when you layer trends on top of that, so there are certain patterns that clearly come out. So North America, if you look at it, it is still the largest market globally in terms of market size and deal value if you look at it. But what is interesting here is the nature of transformation. So you will see the lot of banks here, and especially large banks, mega banks, follow a very coexistence-led approach that both Ronak and Kriti discussed previously. So you will see banks are modernizing in layers instead of a very rip and place kind of system, right? And Europe, on the other hand, if you look at it, it is more of regulation driven. So modernization in Europe, if you see, is shaped by those resilience and control needs. So which is again influencing both how an enterprise is selecting the particular core bank technology provider, and also regulation in Europe is defining the pace of transformation. So again, every region has its own story, and we have covered it all in our report. But overall, what this tells us is core modernization is becoming highly contextual to a particular region. So the how of transformation, as we call it, is very different depending on the region. But yeah, these are the providers that we want to call out, that who are signing deals across these different geographies. So congratulations to all the providers who are getting recognized as part of our top 50 core banking technology providers report.
Thanks for sharing that, Lakshay. And like you rightly said, this is not just about presence, but about where you are winning in the market. And I completely echo the sentiment on every region is in a different stage of maturity where they are with their core modernization journey. So I resonate with all the things you said, and thanks for that fantastic analysis across different regions. I also want to talk about, while we have looked at the different geographies, but beyond where innovation is happening, we also want to see how it is evolving, right? And one of the biggest shift, as Ronak and I were talking about earlier, is the adoption of AI in the core banking space, right? So, which is why we introduced a new category this year itself. So I'll pivot to you, Rakshit. What really drove this shift, and why did we have this category in the 2026 research? As we move to the next
Thanks.
slide.
Thanks, Kriti. I think AI can officially be the word of the year for 2026 because everywhere we go around, AI is just being the central pillar for us. Since the last 12, 18 months, in the grand scheme of things, this doesn't appear to be a lot of time. But when we look at how AI has evolved, it has made incredibly significant progress. It was largely assistive 12 to 15 months back, where it was helping us with generating insights, recommendation, and acting as a secondary catalyzer for us to make decisions. And the actual action, I would say, the call to action actually rested with the user. Now it has completely shifted. AI has become autonomous in itself. We are seeing systems who can now actually take decisions. All humans now we have to do is just define guardrails and some intervention needed from our end. Rest everything AI is taking care of. And another aspect to highlight here is that how AI is no longer something that is just sitting outside the core. And as you and Ronak mentioned, how it is being embedded into the core itself, how it is becoming a part of these systems. So all of these factors came together and we sort of realized that, okay, this is a category we have to highlight. And hence this recognition was created. Congratulations to all these providers.
Thanks for sharing that, Rakshita. And I think I'm also very curious to understand where are we seeing these shifts show up the most strongly across core banking, because it's such a vibrant and varied space. Are there certain use cases or areas where we saw maximum traction and adoption?
Definitely. Two to three use cases actually really stood out for us. And if I have to start off with customer onboarding and documentation is one piece, AI is already making a big difference here. If I look at processes like KYC, document verification, and exceptional handling, they are becoming much more automated now. Instead of manual reviews, which used to happen back then, systems are now able to read documents and whatever, identify gaps, and then move applications forward. Secondly, and this piece you also touched upon with Ronak, how lending and credit decisioning has been changing now. Initially, this was very based and static, but now we are seeing adaptive decisioning where systems can incorporate real time data, they can refine risk assessments, and then with context, make better decisions. One final area that I would also like to call out is payments and transaction monitoring, that too from a fraud and compliance standpoint. AI is now helping us enable more real-time monitoring of transactions, which is allowing banks to respond at a lot faster pace than what they used to earlier. These were three key areas that really stood out.
All right. No, that's great, and thanks for sharing that. And to our listeners today, I know we talked so far about the core modernization, nuancing how it is taking shape across geographies and what does it mean from an AI adoption perspective. If you would like to dive deeper into this or understand more what it means for your organization, how does it impact your roadmap, and how do you tailor to enterprise priorities, please scan the QR code that you would see, and we have a 30-minute analyst connect available. We'd be happy to share more tailored insights, because there is much more. And today's session is to give a brief overview and also give the key findings. So we'd be happy to answer some of these queries in a tailored manner as well. Now, coming back to AI, right? And I know, Ronak, you said this is your favorite topic. I want to ask you one question here. From your conversations with our banking and all the enterprise clients, how are they really seeing AI today in the context of banking? Is it more concrete? Do you see some caution? Do you see some very high production level adoption? What is it that you are hearing on the ground?
We're happy to cover that, right? And if I do not just kind of restrict myself to banking processes, but broader organization, there are a few areas where we have seen AI adoption in the early days kind of giving a lot of results, right? I think no surprises for guessing this, but the first one is IT as a function, right? So, and I know we got a question also around it, so I think it's a good kind of time to answer this question as well, right? So, the first place where we've seen a lot more of AI being used is how are we seeing AI being used in the software development lifecycle? The early pieces was analyzing legacy codes, doing code conversion and migration. But now we are also seeing it into new product build out, right? So we are seeing bulk of the impact is around the velocity, backlog elimination. That is where we are getting bulk of the capability unlock of AI. So the impact is, I would say, focused on those parameters right now, like which is, hey, we were able to kind of get some of our backlog cleared. We were able to kind of drive more productivity across task-based automation. So it's not end-to-end software development lifecycle that we have seen, but it's at least the task-based automation, either on the testing side of the house or in the software development or the actual coding piece of it, or even in the document and analysis pieces of it. So understanding the business requirements, uh, creating some of the documentations. I think that's where we've seen AI usage has increased significantly. We've also seen prototype building, specifically on customer-facing applications. That's the other area where banks have done a lot more. So I would say that that's one form of acceleration that we've seen is IT. The other is a maybe a surprise for a lot of folks, but it's actually in procurement and legal. We have seen a lot of banks make significant headways because the use cases that Rakshit was talking about, which is the document processing, ingestions, and making sense out of it and running them in the processes, we have seen procurement, legal, HR. I think these are functions where we've also seen good adoption. But that doesn't mean the core banking processes we are not seeing AI adoption right now. We are seeing those in pocket. I think the one that everybody's experimenting or now scaling is their customer experience and their contact center, right? So how do I give my human agents more power so that they're able to advise the customers better, answer their questions and queries, but at the same time, how are we looking at creating those self-service customer channels with much more accuracy in terms of voice processing, chat processing, and other things. So that's one that we are seeing, kind of uptick happen, right? So Kriti, I would say I think I'm very happy in terms of the pay. And I know everybody keeps complaining about the pace of AI adoption in regulated industries. Let's also understand there is these are very critical industries. The process that they run are highly regulated, and this is going to be slow to move. But the pace at which the industry is moving, the amount of investment that's happening in AI, the number of patents that the large banks are kind of filing in terms of these processes, right, is massive, right? So I do want to give credit where it is due in terms of the scale of what's happening. And Chris, there's another question that came in, right? So do you want to again read that out to our audience?
Sure, I can bring that up. So one of the questions from our audience is some of these firms are also outsourcing development to third-party professional services firms that can help jumpstart their languishing efforts given level of legacy debt and lack of skills. I think more of an observation. Any comments on that,
Yeah,
Ronak?
no, I would say it's absolutely there. I'd see be again talent shortage or the right talent in the right environment to be able to kind of drive acceleration is needed, right? So it's a combination of human and AI to be able to do it. So I think outsourcing as a whole in product development or outsourcing for system integration, consulting, I think all of those themes are where we are seeing significant activity. And I know Kriti, you and team are going to also talk about that. So we absolutely should cover that.
Sure, that's great. And thanks for sharing those insights, Ronak. And I know while we touched upon the real on ground adoption of how banking enterprises are thinking about adopting AI, the other key thing we are seeing is different banking segments where it is emerging and how it is taking on its own shape. So one segment where we are seeing some very interesting evolution, and we have this as a recognition category for us this year, is Islamic banking. So I'll invite Rakshit to talk about what are some of the trends you are seeing there. Do you want to share that with our audience as well as we look at the recognitions for Islamic banking as well? I think we need to go back to the previous slide, possibly. Okay, sorry.
I think
Let's
in the
keep moving to
meanwhile
the
it
next
comes
slide.
in. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think let's start with credit unions then possibly. I think because these two are our niche recognition segments, both credit unions and Islamic banking. At least the big shift we are seeing, and from my perspective, and Lakshya and Rakshit, feel free to add. While geo nuancing is taking on its different meaning across core banking, across each geography, we see how a different segment of the market also behaves, bases their enterprise needs, their end customer needs, and the legacy and the tech debt they have today. So credit unions and Islamic banking are definitely those two categories that we have. So I'll pose this question to Lakshay first on the credit unions bit, right? So they're evolving now for a very different reason, as we've seen. There are changing member expectations. There is a need for digital first experiences, and the customer expectations were very different 5 years back than what they are today. So, what are you seeing in this segment, Lakshya? Do you want to share with our audience?
Yeah, Kriti, and you're absolutely right. Right. Credit unions modernization journey, if you look at it, they look very different from these traditional banks. For most of these banks, it is like typically focused on scale. They want to modernize to manage complexity, and they have these year-long transformation programs. But I think we need to understand that credit unions operate on a very tight budget. They have those leaner teams, and they have a very membership first relationship with their customer. So all that is important, right? But a lot of these members are now expecting same digital first seamless experience as you called out. So all this collectively is pushing for modernization, for credit unions to modernize. And if you couple this with the regulatory requirements that we are also seeing, so credit unions now need those advanced system for better compliance, better manage their operations, or to have a control over their day-to-day operations, along with managing these reporting mandates, right? So this is the shift that we are seeing. So they are now moving towards that, again, incremental and low risk transformation, and that's why you will see a lot of these SaaS based platforms also getting traction in this particular segment with credit unions, because what they have to bring to table is very simple. What credit unions need, they allow credit unions to modernize quickly, number one. They help them to stay compliant, and most importantly, they have those product factories, they have those light cores which can keep the operations manageable, they keep the operations running. So without any of those complex transformation year long program, these providers are offering what credit unions actually need at this moment. So this is the traction that we are seeing, and as you will notice, the providers that we have recognized, I think they are definitely making that difference in the market.
Thanks for sharing that, Rakshit. And I think, Ronak, I'll invite you to also talk a bit about credit unions, right? Because this is an interesting segment. And I know when we began our research, I think this was ages ago, almost a decade back, when we started looking at this segment, because this was evolving very fast basis their needs. Do you have any observations also to share with our audience today?
Yeah, no, again, happy to. And again, this is the place where I believe, what we also understand is not every core banking system is right fit or right sized for every credit union, right? And the kind of inquiries we get from the credit union leadership is specifically around that, right? Our needs are unique. We want to talk about member experience. We want to kind of, invest into them, and you want to build more longer term capabilities. How do we work with suppliers in that uh, model? And I think that's where the conversation is about: understand our unique needs, understand our unique products and our unique member experiences that we want to deliver, and create products and platforms around that. And the other piece is the fragmentation on the core banking systems, as well as the integration with their other stacks, right? Their front office stack. As much as possible, if there is lower fragmentation and it's like a full banking as a service, full suite stack, that is what the preference is. And we're increasingly seeing that, right? So it's not just about core as the systems of record or transaction, but it's also about, hey, can you drive better experiences as we want to deliver that? And then can you enable new capabilities, right? So the ability to launch new products. And that's become the core theme of what we are seeing with credit unions. And this is one market which lives and thrives on, I would say, peer perspectives. So if you do well in one or two credit unions, you have strong references that can kind of help you scale. And I think that's what we've seen is having your right references is very important from a growth perspective, right? There's going to be an analyst point of view, but I think the credit unions love to hear what others are doing. So.
No, well, that's absolutely spot on, Ronak. And again, I want to congratulate all the providers for their recognition on serving credit unions. So we definitely see the need to have modular plug and play capabilities, how they can do the ease of implementation and speed to market faster. So these become hallmarks to success. And obviously you have customer advocacy, you do well in few places, you get good advocates as well. So that's great. I think Ronak, Lakshay, thanks for sharing that. I'll just keep us moving as well in the interest of time. So the other piece is the Islamic banking that we were touching upon, and apologies for the glitch earlier, but Rakshit, I'll come to you here, right? Because this is a segment where we are seeing innovation happening. This is an absolutely new category recognition for us this year. Do you want to talk about the trends we are seeing?
Definitely. And you're very spot on with this, Kriti. Initially it was sort of a niche capability, but now, as we mentioned, touched upon initially as well, it is becoming a strategic priority for all these Islamic financial institutions. And they are Sharia compliant based. And then again, the major difference that comes out is that they aren't interest based, but working on profit sharing and asset backed models. This is a very significant difference from how conventional banking models work upon. So now there is this increasing need to support multiple operating models within the same environment. Now we need systems to handle different products, and then accounting treatments for both the cases would be different, reporting requirements would be different. And now banks are expecting that we should get access to all of this, but there should be no complexity as such. And then another piece to highlight here, that governance then also becomes really important. Institutions do need stronger controls, clear auditability, and the ability to sort of evolve, and which puts additional pressure on how these platforms are now designed. So I think overall now the focus is shifting not from just supporting requirements to now actually enabling those flexibility and scalability within the core system.
No, you're absolutely right, Rakshit. So I think this is one thing also for our audience. We are increasingly seeing in Islamic banking, it's not just becoming about compliance and governance anymore. It's also becoming equally important to have the right set of experience and scalability with the system. So banks are looking for platforms that can still support the Islamic finance principles. At the same time, you are able to deliver those digital experiences and agility as any conventional banking system would. So I think that's an interesting dynamic. And again, congratulations to all the providers who got recognized for this capability. This is definitely a very vibrant space, and we expect more innovation to come in. As I keep us moving to the last bit we want to cover today for our audience, core banking modernization cannot happen in silos. So it's a very big journey. You need the entire ecosystem to rally together. And this is where I want to ask Ronak, right? So Ronak, as we look at from thinking about individual provider capabilities in our top 50, looking at the broader ecosystem and the coexistence-led approach that we have talked about enough, what role do you see hyperscalers and even system integrators play? So I'll ask you about the hyperscalers first.
Yeah. See, the hyperscalers are bringing a lot more of the foundational capabilities across infrastructure, data, AI, DevOps, and other pieces, which you can bring together, stitch together to drive the next generation of software development, platform development, and that democratization of data and AI access, that what these hyperscalers enable, and the ecosystem that is there, like the marketplaces that each of them have, and the access that clients can get is massive. And I think that's the potential of it. And if you look at year over year, right, again, we have seen this over the last few years, right, Kriti, is the number of core banking providers building deeper integrations and partnerships with one or more hyperscalers has continued to increase. And we don't see this trend to go further down. This is going to go further up as we kind of see the years over year. And again, this analysis may become moot because everybody would have a very strong cloud strategy that is there out here, right? So hyperscalers play a very big role in terms of giving the foundational resiliency, security, and the scalability that these core systems and the banks would need as they're looking at it, and also control on the cost flexibility, and then access to strong AI tooling and other ISV ecosystem, which would be very hard for each core banking provider to build, right? Each core banking provider could build their own marketplace. Absolutely, yes. They could do this, but that's going to be very limited, right? You can't compare with the millions of partners that these hyperscalers would have on their ecosystems versus a few handful that a core banking would have. So this is where this integration and this tight partnership does help. And this also aligns to banks who are kind of building their cloud strategy and kind of scaling this as they're also progressing on their AI mandate. So again, congratulations, AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. I think the investments that you all are doing in terms of kind of driving adoption of cloud and now AI infrastructure readiness in the core banking space.
No, absolutely, Ronak. And I think again, I want to reiterate for our audience that this percentage here reflects what percentage of our top 50 core banking providers that we have recognized for 2026 are part of the industry cloud. So, for instance, if AWS is 54%, that means 54% of the top 50 core banking providers for 2026 are part of AWS industry cloud for banking. So again, congratulations. I think these are great investments. I also want to also call upon Lakshay, right? Because this is one space you are also closely watching out. Any other insights you have for our audience before I move to the system integrators?
I think there is a very interesting narrative that I am seeing in the market, especially for providers who have started their modernization journey and already in terms of like completing the modernization. So the discussion of these providers or enterprises with hyperscalers is now moving to how they can get more value out of the cloud. So earlier for them, it was like journey to the cloud, how I can modernize, how can I modernize faster, cost efficiently, and all. But now I have decided to modernize. Now I have modernized my system. So how can it get more value out of cloud? So from that narrative has shifted from journey to the cloud to journey in the cloud. So I think that is one interesting piece that I am hearing out these days.
No, that make a very valid point. I think as we are looking at the shift in AI adoption and shift in the core modernization philosophy, more from what is the blueprint to how do I modernize, the cloud journey is also taking on its own shapes. It's no longer how do I move to the cloud, but hey, I'm on the cloud. What do I do to optimize? So I think that that's
Yeah.
a valid point you bring up, Lakshay. The last piece I also want to talk about for our audience today is the system integrators and the consulting provider ecosystem. So while there is a lot of talk around about the SaaSocalypse wave that is coming in, how is AI going to disrupt today's ways of working, we increasingly see the importance and relevance of system integrators and consulting to bring together and close the loop in this entire ecosystem for the massive core modernization journey. Ronak, do you want to share some perspectives with our
Yeah,
audience as well?
and again, we all know that core modernization is a complex area, right? So you need help in terms of business consulting, technology consulting, architecture support, and then the actually, hands and feet on the ground to kind of run these complex migration and modernization activities. This is where system integrators and consulting firms who have deep domain expertise understand the business, the products, the processes, and the rules and configurations that come along with it, and the massive variable calculations that happens in these core systems. I think that deep understanding is what these system integrators bring. Along with it, they have deeper partnerships with um these core banking vendors, right? So again, if you look at this slide, what we are seeing is Accenture and IBM have partnerships with more than 20% of the top 50 that core banking vendors that are listed. So what does that mean is Accenture and IBM are investing in building the right talent on these core banking platforms. They are deeply invested into joint go-to-market efforts, building solutions and capabilities and center of excellences to kind of drive that progression, right? So if you look at it, all the major system integrator providers that are listed out here, that they work with more than one or more core banking technology provider as an integrated partner. And we continue to see this is an area of investment where these firms are investing so that they can work with the core banking providers in solving the most critical problems for clients. But at the same time, they are the accelerant, right? So they are providing velocity in the removal of the backlog in terms of how do we move towards more faster modernization? How do we get to value faster? How do we get AI integration done? And now with that complex data, and we were talking about the AI integrations right now, right? With the MCP servers and API integrations, these are the complex problems these SIs are solving. So they play a very critical role. And again, congratulations to all the system integrators to also getting recognized in terms of the capabilities that they're doing out here.
Thanks for sharing that, Ronak. And again, for the benefit of our audience, we do have different cohorts, so less than 10%, 10 to 20%, and more than 20%. Again, this reflects what portion of the top 50 core banking providers that we have recognized for the year have partnerships with these SIs. So that's the way to look at this. And again, SIs and consulting firms are playing a crucial role in this entire core modernization journey. Again, congratulations to the entire teams for setting up their COEs, the SI capabilities, and helping banks modernize at speed and scale. With that, we are down to the last bit that we had planned for our audience. I also want to talk a bit about our core banking research because through core banking, top 50 is the start, but we have much more planned out for this year as well. Also, core banking remains one of our focus areas. So I want to also touch upon some of our upcoming research launches. So the bigger piece that we have coming up is the Innovation Watch on the agentic AI in banking. At the same time, we have a voice of customer where we're speaking with more than 200 banking enterprises and understanding about their key priorities as they work with the core banking technology providers. So I think this is just for the audience. But Ronak, any final closing thoughts on the entire space, the vibrancy, and what do you want to leave the audience with?
Yeah. No, I think everybody used to tell like core banking is a very slow moving market. Again, this is one landscape. This is rapidly changing, right? And Kriti, when we were doing work on core banking recommendations and RFPs and other things, like, again, over the last decade or so, right? And what we always used to say is, okay, hey, this doesn't change, right? Our answers were not changing year over year. But right now, if you look at it, right, just in 18 months, we have a much more fresh perspective. So the pace at which core banking vendors are investing in modernizing their platforms, building new technology capabilities, expanding their ecosystem, and being very focused on the customer needs, right? So either it's regional needs, size of the customers, the use cases, this depth, precision, and focus of what core banking vendors are bringing is very good for the whole ecosystem, right? It's good for banks because there's a lot of R&D dollars and investments that these vendors are making, which now you can take advantage on top of these modern platforms, as well as you're able to kind of drive core focus on AI and other initiatives versus you have to look at other areas, right? So that's where I'm very excited about how this industry is shaping up. All of you who are joining us and a lot of you who are going to listen to us offline, one of the things I would say is feel free to reach out to us. We have a QR code. You can scan that QR code, connect to our analysts. You know how to find us otherwise as well. We are fairly reachable and accessible. So I would love to have this conversation with you, and our teams would love to speak with you to understand your experience, your questions, right? So if you are looking at specific core banking use cases, process modernizations, AI infusion, and need a deep dive on supplier capabilities, or if you're looking at reviewing your existing suppliers, or you have questions on modernization playbooks, or any other thing in the core banking industry, feel free to reach out to us, use this QR code, and we'll be happy to have a conversation. But Kriti, Lakshay, and Rakshit, I wanted to thank the three of you. Fantastic work out here. This has been an amazing analysis, and I'm sure everybody is already asking when is the next iteration of this coming out. So I'm closely looking forward to it, and all the other research that you've outlined out here, right? So from all the agentic AI work that we're going to do in banking, wealth management, everything that you're doing in terms of the voice of customer, in terms of customer experience, all of these research pieces, I'm very excited to look forward to it, and obviously all our clients are as well. So thank you for the time, and thank you everyone for joining and listening to us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great day ahead.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.